It up as we go. Hey, we're live. Episode 143, This Life in Tech. I'm Jason, having a great morning.
Still the bad guy.
And I'm DK.
Oh, man. What's up with that windbreaker, bro?
It's fucking cold in New York this morning.
You've been living in rural Indiana for the last few years where there's nothing to stop the wind from blowing. And yet all of a sudden you're all crunched up.
I'm also cheap. I'm not looking to put on the heat. So every room has its own individual air conditioning / heat. And if I turn that thing on, then it's loud as all get out. So I'm like, fuck it, I'll keep it off and I'll just put on a jacket.
Thanks for thinking of us.
Yeah.
It was really about me. The noise bothers me. I could care less if it bothers anyone else.
There we go. That's
now we're warmed up.
If you're going to serve them up, I'm going to hit them out.
I know, I'm glad. It's like waiting there for you.
I'll tell you, we're all drinking coffee, and it just made me realize.
We should be doing this all in D.C. if some people hadn't screwed up.
Oh, don't get me started.
What?
That we should all have been drinking DC together if some people hadn't screwed up.
I have no idea what the fuck you're talking about.
TK got it.
I don't.
Hubris.
A former employer that all three of us worked for. If they hadn't screwed up, we could all be in person doing this drinking coffee together.
That's a long callback, man. Are you still butthurt about that?
Yeah. Until I have my vengeance in this life or the next.
I don't have to be mad about it anymore because I have 24/7 Dan's on the job.
Yeah, right? He's plenty mad for all of us.
Dan has his list, and
I do.
I just know it's in there somewhere.
Do you know how much I think about that?
Not at all.
Fucking zero. I think about you guys. I think about the cool shit we did, but I don't think about pretty much anything else. I mean, I still use that nice mug because it's actually a really good mug, the black one with the red interior.
Yeah.
They're actually really good mugs. And so this is my connection to what I was saying, which was, man, for Christmas this past year, Mrs. Pittman got me that really nice automatic self-grinding cup machine where it does like a cup at a time. I can't drink coffee now except for that machine. I have another traditional drip coffee machine in my office at school, and it tastes like shit. I can't drink it. It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. I look forward to the weekends now, not because I miss my family, but because I miss this damn coffee machine.
I can't believe you said that. It's a good thing Mrs. Pittman doesn't watch the show.
Until now. This is actually the first weekend. I went nuts with one of the Breville things, largely because it was an engineering marvel, more than anything else. But it actually makes a really good cup of coffee. But throughout the day, I don't need a whole pot of coffee. So I've done one of the little pour over, bought the little glass flask and done the pour over thing, and I actually really like that now.
Yeah, well, and that's why it's kind of the same concept with this cup machine. I like the on-demand ground because it just is fresh,
Yep.
And I'm not a snob. I can't really tell the difference between types of coffee. I can just tell the difference between good coffee and bad coffee, if that makes sense. And I like not having this giant pot of coffee that just sits around all day. I get a cup on demand when I want it. But. Right.
And it gets burnt. And the coffee doesn't get burnt. It's
right
in there, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I have a friend of mine, and I don't know what the correlation is between this, but I mean, you guys both know, I had to stop drinking for about 10, 12 years just because medication I was taking for my arthritis, right? And so in the same way that, I could, before that and subsequent to that, make big distinctions about which bourbons were which and things like that, just because, you're spending time with it. And I could start to do that with coffee. And I have a friend of mine that, she's like, if the coffee's been on more than 15 or 30 minutes, throw it out. She's like, she'll make another pot. And if you think about it, coffee, the amount of coffee grounds to make one pot of coffee is very inexpensive.
Yeah.
So she's like, yeah, whatever, I don't care. I've got the other 35 cents disposable income to make a new pot.
Right.
Well, of all the different branches of the military that I've worked for, I got to say the Army's coffee is by far the worst.
Yeah, white can, black label coffee and a UPC code.
Yeah, that is by far the worst. And everyone says that the Air Force has the best of everything, but I can tell you, the Navy's coffee was, in my opinion, was better than all the other branches of service.
If you want to know, get down to some of what's like really like bad expenditures. We can all, Trent Lott, who used to be the Senate Majority Leader, I think was one of the guy, but he's probably the only elected official that, when I was on active duty, never lied to us, because we were pre-queued. Like people would come in and go, "Hey, what do you guys need? Pay us more." Right? That was always what we were saying. And there's a lot of ways to do it that don't involve giving me a larger base pay, right? And he flat out said one day, he goes, "Yeah, I can't do that." And I go, "Why not?" Because every dime I spend paying you guys is one that I'm not putting in my district to keep myself elected. And I'm like, hey, I wouldn't vote for you being dog catcher, but at least you didn't lie to me, right?
Yeah, right.
I see him in DC. I see him when I'm up in DC periodically, and we kind of chuckle about it, right? But this concept of disparate procurement, right? That even down to something as simple as what people spread on toast, right? For the longest time, and it actually turns out the Navy was probably the healthiest, knowing what we know today. Every other service had gotten away from butter and went to margarine. And the congressional delegations of Wisconsin and every other, butter / dairy producing state get together and threw a hoolie in Congress. And next thing you know, the Navy is the only service that's buying butter in bulk. All right. Now think about that. Like that, if that's how down in the weeds you are about what you're buying, because in Congress, you've got a congressman that are worried about potholes and individual people that, they're buying butter. How does that go to aircraft parts and anything else, right? B-2 stealth bomber, we can argue whether or not you need manned penetration bombers anymore with our ability to shut missiles off, but it's built in 43 states by design. So 43 congressional delegations are like, no, we're not getting rid of this. Right? And then you've got to try to save flag officers from themselves. And when they see shiny new stuff, it's the A-10 conundrum. Like, every Air Force senior officer wants to get rid of the A-10. The only people that don't want to get rid of the A-10 are the people on the receiving end of the ground support fire that they get. And they're like, oh, I guess we'll take care of the men.
The Warhawk.
Yeah. No, like I said, I used to, years, and this is 25, 30 years ago, the first Gulf War, I'd deselect other airplanes in a stack for calling for fire just to get that one airplane, because those guys, they were the best. And that plane is super resilient. And as much as you want fire, you also, as a ground control guy, you also have to think about what kind of danger am I putting that airframe in to protect us. And I was more confident about the resiliency of that aircraft, right? And I think, to kind of segue into the tech piece, that's what we all do, right? we're today, what are we worried about? I'm worried about risk mitigation and resilience. And, we all learn it at different places. And that's kind of where I got my start thinking about risk mitigation and resilience.
Yeah, well, interesting tie together some things we've talked about before. So I got all my equipment ordered for this new Cyber Lab, right? And I think most of the gear will be here in a couple of weeks. But I got my firewall this week. Guess what I bought, Dan?
Oh, no.
Please tell me it's not a sonic wall.
No. Hell no.
Okay. I thought we were going to have to stop being friends.
But the first thing everybody was like,
M was going to fly off his Michigan hat.
Yeah. What the first thing everybody said when I wanted to order one was, what I should get? They all said, oh, dude, you should get a sonic wall. I'm like, over my dead fucking body. Never. You know what they said next?
Palo Alto.
Fortinet. I said, not over everybody's dead bodies. No way, dude. So I bought a PF Sense appliance.
Yeah,
from
awesome.
From NetState, like the pre-built ones.
Yeah, I got to tell you, some of these open source platforms that have gone that Red Hat model have turned out to be really good. So OpenVAS vulnerability scanner, that for $11,000, they give me a virtual appliance and a year of support.
Mm-hmm.
It's all the same vulnerability feeds. I can do OpenNAC. Theirs is like $8,000. So for $19,000, I can keep people off my network and sit and plug in, and I can find new devices. I get all this stuff. And PF Sense, same thing. That I mean, today, if you're building your security around a firewall, you're probably not doing it right today.
Yeah.
Yeah, really. I just need a device to take the handoff from the carrier. And so I needed something because I still don't know what they're going to give me, whether it's going to be fiber or copper. So I needed a device that could have the ports for both. I wanted a certain number of ports.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be able to pass a certain amount of traffic.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to pay an arm and a leg for it. And I wanted it to work. And I wasn't going to support two companies that I think are filled with assholes.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, there's other, because today a firewall is just to keep IP addresses out. That's it.
Yeah, right.
I'm traffic shaping into specific ports. The attacks are all coming over the same ports. I mean, so if you're not spending your time, I mean, really, your stuff should be in the cloud. I mean, the amount of stuff that you can do in either Azure, I mean, Google is now. So last quarter, they were only, I think, 400 million less in revenue in their cloud is what Amazon was.
Mm-hmm.
Microsoft doesn't release, so now so everyone believes that Microsoft with Azure is number 2. Don't sleep on Google.
Yeah, I wouldn't guess that if they are number 2, Microsoft, they will be for long. Although maybe we can talk about this in a little bit. Dude, that Android double phone that they previewed, Microsoft, that thing looks sexy as hell.
Microsoft says it's not a phone.
Yeah.
It would be smart for them to make an Android phone, though.
Apple says the watch isn't a watch now anymore, so because it also tells time. So
Yeah.
I don't believe anything that Apple ever says. Just like I believe they're intentionally giving code to all the forensics companies so they don't have, and then they could be in public saying we're against the FBI. They'll never break our encryption. Here, in case you name it, here's how here's all the current exploits. So go build your forensics kit around us. Actually, what's the one that your friend works for? TK, which little device forensics company?
I forget now. Good Lord, sorry. You woke me up there for a second. I was letting you guys go, and I was taking.
This is what happens when you get old. All this stuff, memory goes. He used to talk about her all the time. He's like, "This lady is great."
God, the Amber Schroeder.
Yeah, that's her.
Yeah.
What were you daydreaming about, bro?
I was just listening to what you guys were talking about. I was like, hey, they're having a great conversation. There's no reason for me to interrupt all this. I didn't know there was going to be a test.
Yeah. Sure, she's your friend.
I know, but I was like, hey, there's talk. I got nothing to add right now, so I'm just going to hang out here.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, this PF Sense appliance is badass.
It is. I bet it is. How much do you want to pay?
For what's that?
How much did you want to pay for it?
I was just gonna say, I think I paid like $4,000.
Wow.
And most of that's for the support.
Yeah, and this is like their highest end unit too. I mean, this thing's no slouch.
I'm starting to become, especially when I have to build from scratch. Mm-hmm. I mean, these kind of systems, it's perfect.
Well, I mean, they all do the basic same job, like you were saying. I just want you to filter packets for me based on some rules that I arbitrarily decide. And at this point, given my use cases, it's really about keeping the traffic from leaving than it is anything else.
What are you doing? Yeah, that kind of thing. It's like,
Yeah, I mean, but it's going to be a pretty sweet. I mean, talk about open source. So I built this. I designed this to be its own OpenStack private cloud.
Nice.
So we'll see how it turns out. I talked to Michelle the other day just to double check my figures.
I would have called Stoney.
Yeah, I don't have his number.
You need to give it to me.
Yeah.
I'll give you his contact info.
So I called Ian and I'm like, hey man, how you doing? He's like, I'm doing great.
He actually answered the call this time?
Yeah. He almost always responds to me.
I was going to say, sometimes when I call.
Sometimes with a text message, it might take him a couple days, but he always responds. always. But he called me back right away once I told him what I was doing.
Yeah.
He's like, oh.
Yeah, he's working for whatever cloud company right now, or cloud professional services company.
That company that Dell bought.
Yeah. Hey,
He's
did
not
you?
working at the bank anymore?
No, he left. Like 2 weeks after I did.
Oh, really?
Yeah. As soon as he knew, he's like, "All right, great, I'm out." Like they like 12 people left.
Yeah.
So the only people that are still there are the ones that can't get a job somewhere else.
Nice.
Or, don't want to leave that area. They're bound to it. I mean,
I tend to believe it's because there's no other employers. There's only like 3 major employers in the area.
That's
right. Right.
Yeah.
Think about that like globally. How long? Obviously we have the example of your previous employer, but just in general, that concept of you get people. I'm talking CEOs, owners of companies, and everything like that. They can lock in a workforce at a very attractive rate forever because they're like, hey, I got no competition.
Right.
And it's why people gravitate towards big cities. And I think telecommuting and being able to work that kind of changes that dynamic a little bit. But in places where you have to be in the office, that concept of, damn, you're saying like nobody's ever left, they retire.
Yeah.
Right. It's like the movie The Firm, right? Nobody ever leaves. They either retire or they die.
Yeah.
And, when somebody decides to pack it in and exercise, vote with their feet, so to speak, how shocking is that to that person, right? Because they have a paradigm that's built around, hey, I'm putting a fence around this employment base and I'm going to pay them whatever I want, when I want, and they can't do anything about it. If they don't like the way I'm treating them, tough, because they're here. I'm the best gig in town, even though when you look outside of that environment, it's not very attractive. Right. And then like you, a lot of people are starting to vote with their feet globally.
Well, it's this weird 21st century version of fiefdoms, like in a caste sense, right?
Oh, yeah.
Where you're not free to travel, you're not free to work where you want, you're trapped on this land, and you're in perpetuity serving that lord, and that's the exact opposite of what our technology should be doing. It should be creating a globalized workforce you don't have to travel in the physical sense even, right? This is an interesting problem I've been thinking about with like where I grew up in Northeast Ohio, or, that parts of Pennsylvania, Western Pennsylvania. They're just destitute because all the industry left. And then anybody that had any sense of there's a world out there left. And so you get this massive brain drain, and that just further cascades those areas into desolation.
Right. And that's a global problem. Eastern Europe, big in the tech piece, is like trying to keep, the concept of trying to keep people where they're at. Look at the Renaissance Pittsburgh's having.
Mm-hmm.
Right? When you want to take as kind of the capital of the Rust Belt, at some point, if you can say that, look at the Renaissance they're having by just saying, hey, we're going to become a med tech hub and and an education hub, a cyber education and technology education hub. And when you go there, like I grew up going up there. My grandparents were from the area, and I can remember that like acrid coal smell every time we used to pull in. You get there, and almost to the point where I liked it, right? Because there was a very positive thing. This goes back in the late '90s. I remember flying over to Eastern Europe and getting off the airplane in Tuzla, Bosnia, and they had all coal-fired plants. And the minute I got off, it was kind of overcast today. There was big hilly areas. It reminded me of my grandmother's house in Pittsburgh. Right? It was a very fond memory, right? Mm-hmm. And, but when you look at the auto industry and you look at how the auto industry has largely moved to the south, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. Look at the struggles.
No unions.
Well, yeah. Right to work states is probably the correct euphemism there, doctor. And we want to say that. Look at Detroit right now. Look at GM, the strike in GM, right? What's that about, right? And parent company of my company, that's what they do. They're big analysts in the auto industry, and they're doing some very interesting work on what net effect. And the end of it is they're saying that they're creating a like a statewide recession, right? Mm-hmm. And, at what point does that start to leak out, right? And go elsewhere, right? And if you look at, I think we talked about this before, because like there's a Toyota plant in Ohio now, right? It's I think it's Ohio. Might be wrong on the state, but they do tours all the time, and they invite everybody in to walk through the place, and they'll even take other auto manufacturers like the big three. They'll, hey, come on in, let's go for a walk. You can look at our process all day long. We'll even give you the books on how it's done, because it's about culture, not about process. Right? You have to have the process to be successful at anything in life, but it's about culture, right? And they've made such a big statement about that. They're like, yeah, we don't care. And even they've got the employees to buy into it, where their benefits packages are much greater and cheaper than a union negotiated package for the most part. But they've got their employees to buy into quality gives us long-term job security, not a document, right? Which is essentially what they're saying with the union is like, hey, we want a document that guarantees our job security, not quality.
Right.
And that's where these, BMWs, Honda, Toyota have all gotten their thing together is, hey, let's buy into that model that quality is king. And as long as we're building a great product, we're not going to have to worry about being unemployed.
Yeah, right. I mean, you might be subject to like commodity price swings, but that's not going to evaporate your company as long as you're producing a product that people find value out of.
People, I mean, the good thing about the auto industry is with every passing day that humanity gets lazier. We're gonna I go to DC all the time, as you guys know, and if I'm downtown, people are like, oh, let's get an Uber. I'm like, it's 5 blocks, walk.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, just get out. Like you were sitting at a conference table at a meeting for the last hour. Get up and move for a little bit, get your brain working again before you get to the next one, right?
Right.
The concept of, everybody, Uber's not going away, right? Or ride sharing services are not going away. Why? Because people are lazy, right? And how many times, and I don't know how often you guys do ride sharing. I mean, probably we're living where you live now, Jason. You're not, there's not a big ride sharing economy in semi-rural North Carolina.
They do tractor sharing.
Tractor sharing, yeah, they do farm implements. But think about, how many times have you tried to use a ride sharing service and had that driver say, it's not worth it, and cancel on the way there because they got a more attractive offer along the way? Because either I'm leaving an airport and I got to drive out to BFE somewhere, and they're worried about how they're going to make money getting back, right? Or you just don't want to go far enough.
I've actually never had that happen to me. I've heard it happen to people, but it's never personally happened to me.
So they started having a lot of those complaints, and now allegedly Uber and Lyft have made it to where the driver doesn't know the destination until you get in the car. That's at least what's supposed to be now. But because I remember, talking to some of them, because it used to happen all the time.
Yeah.
I'd be going, coming from the airport and like, I don't want to do that. And they would cancel. So I don't know if it's still true, but some of them that I've spoken to have said they can't see the destination until they actually say, I've got my passenger.
Have you ever watched the body language of a taxi driver when you get in, you tell them where you're going, and that it's like you're driving them out in the weeds to get dropped off, and they're like, damn, I only got a one-way ride. I'm only making a one-way fare.
I'll tell you, it's interesting you bring this up. I was just thinking about Uber and Lyft yesterday. Check this out. So I'm exactly 14 miles from campus. Okay. So 28 miles round trip. And Mrs. Pittman and I have been thinking about, okay, so, as we move forward in time, what are other ways we can reduce our economic footprint so that we're accumulating more raw cash and being liquid and we're not spending it on stupid shit that we don't need to. And I'm like, well, I've never really driven a ton for years, right? And now I'm driving every day, at least 5 days a week. Like, this kind of sucks. I have to fill my car up every week and a half, which I haven't done probably in 10, 15 years, right? I'm like, dude, this costs some money, even with the gas being half price here compared to California. This kind of sucks. I'm like, well, what could I do to save on gas? And so, why are fucking cars so expensive? Like, seriously, like I was looking at like even small hybrid, dude, get me 50 miles to the gallon because that's double what I'll do in my BMW right now. $25K. Get out of here, dude. Listen, check this out. So here's the Uber tie-in. So I'm like, my little pea brain's like, fuck it, I'll just Uber every day back and forth. It would be cheaper to Uber back and forth to campus every day for a year, solid, 365 days. It would be half the cost of buying a car.
Yeah, half the cost for that 1 year.
Yes.
So in year 3, you're losing money.
Yeah, I understand. I'm not doing a full total cost of ownership calculation. I'm saying
everything
why
should
the
be like that now.
Why the fuck is a year of
You know
Ubering?
what I don't like.
Why is it
doesn't further my argument?
Yeah, why is a year of Uber half the cost of buying a car?
Because that's the way Uber makes money. It's because people don't do the total cost of ownership and determine when they're going to start losing money.
Don't think
That's what it is.
don't think about it. Don't think about you said that buying a car, so the 25 grand threshold, right? Think about it in New York City or Boston or Chicago, some big urban center where it costs you $600 a year, $600 a month to park your car.
Right.
That would be cheap.
What's that?
That would be cheap in
Right,
Manhattan.
that's what I'm saying. You're probably trending towards closer to $1,000 a month for your car, right? So there's another 12 grand on top of it. That's where the economy of scale really comes in. When people are like, I'm gonna take public transportation, and largely Uber, ride sharing is turning into part of the public transportation metric, right? Mm-hmm. And how long? What's especially like in a city like New York, where excuse me, where taxi companies pay millions of dollars for these medallions to be allowed to operate as a provider, right? And it's that model that, Uber didn't kill taxi services, right? Price fixing and not being convenient to where I want to go, when I want to go, and how I want to get there are killing that. Same as Netflix and didn't kill Blockbuster and everything else, right? It's mostly about customer service. But this concept that if I add up everything in a big city, why, if I move to DC tomorrow, like I said, I'm going to have a car in case I want to get out of the city somewhere. But even now, if I want to go shopping at a mall, right, I can get on the Silver Line and go to Tyson's Corner, right? For $3.
Right.
And the metro is clean, it's safe. I mean, why wouldn't I want to do that? Right? And even now, but a buddy of mine who's working up there at the Pentagon, and they get their choice. They either get metro paid for, or they get a parking space somewhere around the Pentagon.
Yeah, I'd take the metro.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And even still, if you lived in DC, DC has, at least when I was there, zip cars. So I don't even need a car. If I needed to rent a car for a weekend, I can just reserve it because the zip car is cheaper than going to a rental car.
They're nice cars.
So if I wanted to go somewhere for the weekend, I just get a Zipcar. It tells me, because they typically had them at different metro stops. So I'm like, okay, I got to go to Courtyard Square to pick up my car, and I'm just hopping on the metro to go there, and which is even better because now I'm over in Arlington instead of in DC. Makes it so much easier to get out because I don't have to fight the traffic in DC now if I wanted to.
Right.
That's right. 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 And so that's kind of my point in bringing it up is I wonder at what point, like Uber for me here would be the metro, the equivalent of.
Right.
And so I look at the potential cost of it that way, not necessarily as replacing the cost of a car, because I still have my car, and I'm not paying for my car anymore. I own it outright. All I pay for is gas and maintenance. But why do I want to accumulate that on my car when for half the cost of what would be a new car, I can just take public transportation or the equivalent of? Now, what bums me out is there ain't a place at the university to hitch my horse, because I would buy a horse and ride that motherfucker every day.
I'd pay to see that with Purple Shirt Day.
Yeah, man. Friday's purple shirt day, man. I had my purple shirt on yesterday, my purple tie. We had our faculty meeting.
Hey, why not just ride your bike? You do more miles than that in a day.
Here's what I found, because it's 28 miles around. Not a big deal for me. I've ridden it numerous times now. The problem is I can't predict the weather well enough. That's the problem. And so, every time I wanted to ride at the beginning of the semester, in the evening it would rain.
Rain suit.
That'll keep
make
you
it
dry. That'll
Yeah.
keep no. And you can get them in colors, and it'll keep me
Yeah.
dry-ish, but it won't keep me upright. I mean, like, big difference between pedaling a bike in the rain and riding a motorcycle in the rain, bro.
You should still do it. I see people riding bikes. Go ahead. Look, you don't have to worry about your face getting more messed up. You'll be fine.
Wow.
Wow, like,
That took a
you
turn. 30.
yeah, you really tried to shoehorn that one in.
Yeah.
He's
When
been,
you're this age,
So how difficult is it how difficult is it really to ride a bike in the rain? I don't know.
well,
uh,
I don't think it's a difficulty thing. It's like, why do I want to be soaking wet at the end of one leg or another?
that's part of it too. I mean, obviously you're gonna get wet even in a suit. The problem is it's fucking dangerous, man. that's the problem.
Right. Well,
It's dangerous.
since I am not about to go and try and ride a bike anywhere at this point, how dangerous is it? I mean, I don't know. Why you said it's hard to keep upright.
Yeah, because the road's slick. All right, so check this out. You have the same problem on a motorcycle. It's just compounded on a bicycle. Okay, when you hit the painted lines, it's extremely slick, and when the road's wet.
Yeah, the painted lines definitely are.
Yeah. Okay. Well, but where do you ride on a motorcycle? You ride in the middle of the lane, right? Bicycles don't. They're over on the right where the white
right next
line is.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay.
So just by default, it's immediately more dangerous to be on a wet road on a bicycle. Now, couple that with the people driving, in the driest of conditions, it's not exactly hazard free. In wet conditions, it's compounded.
You get some
okay.
interesting driving stylings.
What's that?
You get some interesting driving stylings.
Dude, man, this is an interesting place with the way people drive. I've lived in a lot of different places, you know what I mean? And people drive different in different places, but this is something else, man.
This area is very odd for driving, and for a long time I was like, why is this? Why is it so crazy? Right? And then you go, well, wait a second, it's the largest. The Hampton Roads area around the beach, Norfolk, either side of bridges and tunnels and all that stuff. with how much Navy's here, how much government is here, you get people from all 50 states driving. And I learned how to drive in Boston. Right?
Mhm.
That's a different sport than somebody that learned how to drive in rural Mississippi, for example. Right? And then you get them all together on the road and you're like, hey, let's have fun. And somebody's looking for an address, somebody's road raging, and everything in between, right? But it's like when I lived in England, the Brits are very respectful of cyclists. And they used to cycle all the time. I was about ready to get rid of my bike like a month after I got back here because people are just trying to drive you into the dirt. And they're like, why are you riding on the sidewalk? I'm like, because the word walk in there should be the operative piece of this thing while you're asking that, right? But you're right. I mean, there's a big cycling club around here, and this was out in a rural part of Virginia Beach, a farming community, right? The bucolic center, as it were. And there's some jackass, for lack of a better term, he just got sick of 40 bikers riding by at high speed once on a Saturday. Like the whole peloton goes by him once.
Mhm.
It's not like there's a circle and they just keep going by his house. The idiot put like nails or tacks out there and basically hurt a bunch of people.
Oh yeah.
He the whole farming community and drag that dude outside, roll him around in those for a while.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, what are you thinking about with humanity, right?
Yeah. Well, the other thing too, Dan, to fully answer your question is, of course, now being fall and winter, I'd have to ride in the dark. And that makes it even worse.
Oh, yeah.
Makes it even worse.
You can't be reflective enough. Well,
No.
you know why cyclists get hit? There's a concept that when you're driving, especially like in pursuit driving or anything, and you're driving and there's oncoming traffic, there's something that looks like you're going to hit, don't look at what you're going to hit. Look at where you want to go.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're driving, if you get like oncoming lights or whatever, we teach pursuit driving, it's look down at the side of the road.
That's right, at the lines.
The right side of the road so that you know where you can see what's directly in front of you and you know where the out of bounds is, so to speak.
Yeah.
But the problem is most people, like when they see a cyclist or they see an object they don't want to hit, they fixate on that object. And it's literally like a magnet that drives into it.
Yeah.
And that's exactly how, I don't know if it's the same thing on a bicycle, but on a motorcycle, if you're not looking where you want to move the bike, like you're taking an exit and you're focusing, on straight ahead, no matter how much you lean that bike over, you're not going to turn.
No, yeah,
turn your head.
We call it target lock.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, same thing. Riding a bicycle, where and it's a fundamental rule. If wherever your head is, right, that's where your body's gonna go.
Right, and that's why we have a problem in the U.S. because so many people's head is up their bums.
Yeah, but otherwise, dude, I would totally ride my bike if I had a little more control over my schedule. You know, like next semester might be a little different because I don't have a morning class every day of the week. I only have a morning class twice a week. So in those days, it might be a little better. And then I just got to figure out the weather thing. But nonetheless, man, I even looked at like scooters, like Vespa mopeds. I'm like, but then why would I do that? Why wouldn't I get a motorcycle? Like you know what I mean? Anyway,
you can get the electric motorcycle.
Yeah, dude, some of those are pretty sweet. Hoo-wee.
Harley just came out with theirs.
Oh, I wouldn't buy that. Fuck that.
It's really not a Harley. It's probably made by Porsche again, just like the V-Rods were.
Mm-hmm. Who were the V-Rods made by?
So the V-Rod, the engine was a Porsche when the Night Rods were out there because it was designed by Eric Buell. So when Harley bought Buell Systems, then Eric redesigned it. That's why everyone was like, "Oh, that's not a Harley." Yeah, it only had the Harley sticker on it because everything else was Porsche.
I tell you what I liked about the V-Rod, nothing to do with the motorcycle. I'm not a motorcycle guy, but I watched the show on the engineering because of the way that to get that bike to look like it did. They had to do some semi-unnatural things with metallurgy to get the frame of the bike to do and to be able to have the rigidity and do everything the frame of a bike is supposed to do.
Right.
The rigidity in the frame was up high on the bike, not down low. Right. And so that created some certain conundrum. But the engineering behind that, just to get that frame built, I thought that was, for me, like I said, I'm not a big motorcycle guy. I'll watch shows about stuff being built all day long because I think it's just fascinating to me. And that was one of those shows where it's like, hey, it's coming on again. I want to watch it again.
Yeah, it was. And then, of course, as soon as Eric's non-compete was up with Harley, he went out and created another motorcycle company. So, which was better than his original Buell Systems.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. It's just one of those things. Like, sometimes I stand back with things like cars. Like I drive a car, but I don't drive a lot until recently, and I really don't think about it too much. But when I start to think about it, I think about, well, why is that one area compared to like consumer electronics where it doesn't seem to me that technology has really driven the cost down over time, even though the vehicles are much more technologically advanced.
Well, I think part of it is when you've got the people that are having to continue making them, right? When you have the unions that are driving the costs up, it's not necessarily the costs of the material, it's the cost of the labor. And then when you can have that in the United States, a Toyota comes in, so they're like, well, I can make additional money because I'm gonna price the Camry just a little bit higher than whatever the so it would no longer be the Ford Taurus. I mean, Ford's getting out of the whole sedan business, but in essence, it was the Taurus. People are gonna they're able to buy the Toyota, get more for it, and the Ford costs keep going up because of all the unions. The union labor is there. Actually, it's not just the union labor; it's the pension and the benefits they have to pay that are the highest thing on the balance sheet.
I was getting ready to say that. The cost of ownership of an employee is what drives a lot of that that behavior. And I think how are you getting rid of that? How are you getting away from that in a hurry? Right? You're not. Right. Here's my statement on unions. All right. At the turn of the last century, they were necessary, right? Safe workplace, all of those things, right? Fair wage, all of that, right? Now, there's probably 20, 25 federal agencies that ensure workplace safety and health and all, everything else. Well, pick one or the other, right? We're going to let the federal government have oversight of employee safety and everything else, which they largely do anyway. I mean, it's not like Ford or GM or Chrysler can ignore OSHA regulations or EPA regulations or anything like that.
Right.
So what's the union doing? right? It's the Fred Smith argument, right? Well,
Yeah.
like I said, I'm not. It's the Fred Smith argument, right? Fred Smith's the CEO of FedEx, and when he created FedEx, he organized it as an airline. In doing so, he would rather deal with a few highly compensated, well-trained, unionized pilots, right? Which is it's a civilized union, right, so to speak, and as opposed to trying to oversee a unionized trucking company, which is effectively what UPS is, right? They're organized as a trucking company, and that's when there's the conundrum. When you talk about who's more profitable and who can grow and do everything, it's FedEx, because their ability to shape their workforce is much cleaner, right? And that is, I mean, it's, and every time Congress drags him in, now he just gets downright rude with him. I mean, he listens to him for 10 minutes and goes, "No, I'm not going to do that." He gets up and walks out and makes fun of him on the way out. Right? If you look at it like at its apogee for like things like that, like let's take the U.S. Postal Service.
Right.
Because of the manpower and long-term care and feeding of employees and former employees, they have basically screwed that up so badly, right? That they're the only, they're required to have, I think it's either 50 or 75 years of pension liquidity, right? And they're making these big things. And it's like it's almost, my personal opinion is I don't understand why we still deliver mail on Saturday. I really don't.
Right.
I mean, because you're looking at a group of people that they're the fastest dying people on a group of people that still really worry about the mail.
Or just deliver on Saturday.
Well, it's something. I mean,
how much mail do we really get? Most of the mail that I get is junk mail.
I was just going to say, exactly. That's what I was just going to say. Anything that's important, I get it through FedEx or UPS.
Right. Or I get it.
Or whatever carrier Amazon Prime winds up doing.
Right. I mean, Amazon, I had a nice Mercedes high top van pull up in front. It's like, a little bit of off gray in color with the Prime logo on the side the other day. And
Right.
It's like Fred Smith always says to Congress, "Hey, when you guys are finished messing up the mail, I'll deliver it."
Well, but it stands to reason, right? That the USPS has become so monolithic that it has to. I mean, how much of it is a sacrifice to just its own infrastructure? Right, and that's kind of what I hear you saying is it's so big and it's grown so large that it can't really fulfill its own mission anymore because it's so tasked with just keeping itself in existence.
Right. I mean, I don't go to the post office that often, but periodically, you gotta get rid of, you gotta do a package or something like that, and depending on where it's going, the most convenient way might be the Postal Service sometimes, or more importantly, I've got to return something. Right? And it was shipped by the Postal Service, and so I get a label for the Postal Service to think. You go into the post office, it's like, yep, you go into a FedEx store.
Oh yeah, it's a completely different experience.
They are on it, right? And every station is well marked and things, But I'm not like, you just sit there and you watch people just put their heads down while there's 30 people. I don't know, like me personally, like these folks that you can be in their space and they can just basically ignore the rest of humanity in their space. I don't know how, like, that's an art. Like,
yeah, it is, man.
Try to do that. That is, my natural thing is like, hey, how can I help you? Right. And especially like you go to places where they're working off a list, like you got to go in and sign in. They can just ignore people all day long.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, the interesting part to me with the unions is that the whole collective bargaining for compensation and minimum wage and things like I've never worked for minimum wage a day in my life. If you're skilled, why do you worry about it? It's the people who aren't skilled are the ones that are complaining about, I need to have this wage because otherwise I can't live. Get rid of minimum wage.
The whole collective bargaining thing in today's world kind of baffles me because, Dan, what portion of your budget do you spend on manpower?
Significant. Almost all.
60, 70%? Maybe.
Easily.
Yeah. Most businesses do, right? And when you look now at the big public, sports are really where the big, where you hear about unions the most in the public space, right? If you look at NFL, for example, and they're all roughly the same, but thing, and the problem is envy drives a lot of the discussion, right? That these guys are making millions of dollars, right? Well, you have two groups of people. You have ownership and you have the employees, in this case, the athletes. In any business, 70% of your revenue going out to pay your workforce is not on, it's nobody, you want to try to manage that, but nobody loses their head when they hear that number anymore, especially in tech, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's about right. Man, maybe you're, what are you doing? Because I'm a little bit higher than that sometimes is what I hear, right? But everybody looks at these athletes that are making now, in some cases, hundreds of millions of dollars. The money's there. Right? The money is absolutely there because these owners just aren't giving the money away.
Yeah, right. They're not taking it out of their pocket.
Right. And they've negotiated about a 50-50 split on the on-field revenue for their business. What a great deal.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, the players are above a little bit above 50%. So they're taking,
but they're nowhere near, like that owner of that business is nowhere near having a manpower cost approaching the norm in the U.S.
Right?
It's really close.
20%. Right? What a deal. That's the argument that they're not fighting, right? But what are in particular the NFL, just by virtue of the average career in the NFL is much smaller, the contracts are not fully guaranteed, and a bunch of other things due to the violent nature of the game. Right? Mm-hmm. If you're not going to guarantee a dude's contract for the full contract and he gets injured and you get rid of him, but you also say that you don't have lifetime health care, right? You, in a lot of cases, have created pre-existing conditions by the nature of what you're doing, right? Like they say, basketball is a contact sport, football is a collision sport, right? And if you say we haven't changed the size of the field and all of the athletes are bigger, better, faster. When you're looking at a 290, 300-pound lineman that's got the feet of a dancer and can run somewhere near a sub 5 second 40, you're looking like talking about getting hit by a truck.
Yeah.
Right. Repeatedly.
Yeah. Even baseball, when they didn't change the size of the field, they started doing things with the mound because you're talking about someone throwing the ball 95 miles an hour on as big of an arc as they had. Changing that mound made it to where now balls are since then are launching.
Let me ask you a quick question, Dan. In your MBA program, have you come across any research that has modeled or simulated, rather than increasing minimum wage or supporting collective bargaining through unions, co-op profit sharing models with employees?
Nothing like with a co-op. No,
because I'd be interested in seeing a little experiment where instead of paying at least a minimum wage, instead of entertaining collective bargaining through a union, we just co-op it. I mean, REI does this. I'd be interested to see what it does in a different vertical, like tech, for instance.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, in some ways, when you have startup companies, that's kind of what you're doing, right? You're giving everyone a piece of the equity in order to stay there. Mm-hmm. And those companies that do employee profit sharing tend to be the ones that have a healthier workforce in terms of longevity, because if there's a profit, employees are getting a bigger piece to that. And a lot of companies aren't doing that because they want to give, so to speak, more to the shareholders, where the shareholders tend to be already bigger companies, and that's why you have the high turnover rate.
Well, another big company, real quick, that I just thought of while you were saying that is Kaiser Permanente. That's a co-op.
Yeah.
Think about this though. When you have a discussion of the minimum wage and what the minimum wage should be, we can, execution aside, right? What's the intent of who we're protecting, right? What segment of the economy? You're largely protecting the service economy. Right. And if you say large, I'm not talking owners of business management, but the whole concept of minimum wage and everything was to say, hey, you got high school kids, you got people that are learning how to work, to give them that first step, and they're traditionally have moved on, right? I look at life, it's like a funnel, right? How many employees of McDonald's, for example, does it take to get the one guy that's going to be a manager that's going to turn into a franchise owner? right? And move yourself up. I mean, like In-N-Out Burger, right? They've got a model that says their managers are making probably $100,000 a year. I don't know the exact number, but they're well compensated in the service industry because much like, and Marine Corps is a good example. Every 4 years, the Marine Corps likes to trade out most of their people, right? They have a few people that move into the NCO Corps, and that pyramid, because of the size, they're only 180,000 roughly. That gets very small. They want the bulk of their workforce being junior people, right? And then their psychological model of the Marine Corps is to create former Marines, not ex-Marines. So now you always have a recruiter for the rest of your life when they go out into the workforce and do great things, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When you look at the service economy, it should be largely the same way, right? And that, I think, is where the schism comes with this guaranteed minimum wage, right? Just like when we went back and with healthcare 10 years ago now, right? They said, hey, we've got 45 million uninsured Americans, right? And we want to protect, this is what was stated, and we want to protect against people not being insured with pre-existing conditions. Those are two of the big things, right? I mean, there might have been another one, but from my memory, the two big stated things was we have 45 million uninsured Americans, and we want to protect against minimum wage or protect against pre-existing conditions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, if you gave, and this is TK's simple math, we co-opted a significant portion of the economy to do this. And then we wonder why it's not cheaper when the insurance industry has to be placated because they're not going away. And then we add a layer of federal oversight on top of it and say, what do you mean it didn't get cheaper?
You're right.
Again, not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but I can add, right?
Yeah. We just added 45 million to the whole people that are going to be insured. Well, that's going to cost more.
Well, it's not even the people. It's the whole other layer of bureaucracy. And then the minute you exempted any business, it wasn't a good idea.
Yeah, it's the USPS problem. It's the
right, but that's you start exempting people, right? So if we say there's 365 million Americans right now, every man, woman, and child, of which no one pays near $1 million in employee contribution, everything to those healthcare plans. We paid $600 million for a back end of a website that didn't work, right? And that's 2008 dollars, right? That's not today dollars, right? We have 45 million uninsured Americans. Give each one of them $1 million, and then legislate the rest, right? Mm-hmm. So it wasn't about healthcare at all, right? And so now you start adding that into the argument. But why are healthcare costs skyrocketing exponentially compared to any other cost?
They're for-profit companies.
Correct. They're for-profit companies, and what you're seeing now is you get one of the biggest oncology drug manufacturers just came out and said, "Hey, I'm not in this to cure cancer. I'm in this to make money for my shareholders." Mm-hmm. Right? And that, you're not getting away from that, right?
No.
But adding another layer of federal bureaucracy to this has nothing to do with making it to getting the right outcome, right? Where you have your citizenry is protected. And more importantly, go ask anybody who's lived in a country with socialized medicine, right? It's not efficient. It's never going to be efficient because you stop taking care of patients and start taking care of numbers, right? And that's the problem.
Well, and I think in fact, that's part of the problem we have is we've brought certain components of socialized healthcare into our system, but we've not replaced the monolithic infrastructure all around it. And it just compounds all the disadvantages of it. And it doesn't really emphasize any of the advantages.
Right.
Is the way I see it. And so if you're not getting, my opinion would be, and this would be my platform when I run to unify the Carolinas, either strip it all out and make it fully 100% socialized and start from there, or make it completely unrestricted and open free market. None of this hybrid in between bullshit.
I tend to go with the open free market for one reason. Everywhere there's socialized medicine in the world, people come here to get operated on. Right? The wait times are insane because you're not. one of the ways that they try to control costs in national healthcare systems, single payer systems, is by what you're going to pay the doctors, right? What level of effort does it take to become an MD? Right?
Depends on your specialty, but I mean, regardless, you're talking a minimum of 10 years, a minimum of 10 years to be practicing medicine.
Right. And that's just to be a resident.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And and they're absorbing a lot of debt in most cases, right? To start off with. And so in what other pursuit? And people could say, well, I mean, and the federal government's never done it well. There's a big program to train doctors and dentists to go out and work on, federal reservations and in rural areas. And a lot of it, the students just blow it off at the end of it. There's no mechanism to track them down and drag them to a reservation for 5 years and chain them there to a clinic.
Right.
Well, and what is the incentive for a lot of these, doctors at this point to go into that? Because we allow everyone to sue for malpractice on everything, and so the insurance costs are so high because they don't seem to understand that unless it's negligence, I just don't think that things should get paid out. You're having surgery for a reason. Practice,
right? I'll give you a good story. So years ago, and it's totally. It's now even more true today than it was in 2005, 2006. I'm sitting I'm still in the military, so I'm sitting there at the Naval Hospital, and the head of the cardiology clinic, really cool dude, captain, and I was his patient. And one day I looked at him, I go, you're a great cardiologist. Why aren't you out practicing in the civilian world? He goes, first off, if I was out practicing in the civilian world, I wouldn't even really know your name. Right? I'd have PAs and nurses and everybody that would be, and he goes, plus then I'd have to have somewhere in the, just with office space and malpractice insurance, some over $1 million a year before I even start getting paid or I pay my nurses or anything else. And I get no time with patients and patient cares. And so this is important to me. And you're seeing a lot of doctors stay in the military a lot more, right? A lot of them avail themselves of, free medical education, and then they go in the military. And I talk to people all the time. I said, I'm not a big advocate that everybody should join the military. I think everybody should find some way to serve humanity, and however that looks, whatever that, and serve your country, and whatever that looks like for you, please go do that. But that if you're gonna go be a doctor, a patient in a uniform is the same as a patient out of a uniform, right? And if you can get a free education, go get a free education. Why wouldn't you do that? And they're paying more now probably to get people to be specialized and everything like that. And just bonuses for specialties and stuff like that is based on, again, it's a moving target based on what the needs of the military are. But they're doing some great work, right? And then largely they're overworked. There's a orthopedic guy, and I cannot remember his name, but he was doing surgery 6 days a week for the Navy.
That's a high load.
Yeah, that's just the level of that. And he was a great surgeon. In fact, he basically said, "Hey, can I just not work one day in surgery because I want to do research?" He was still willing to work 6 days a week. He just wanted to do research to get bigger, better, faster. Because working on shoulders and and joints and stuff, they have a bursa sac around it, and how gentle you are with the bursa sac has a lot to do with recovery and long-term use of that joint, making it either equal or stronger as the one that hasn't been operated on. And he basically said, "Thanks, I'm good," when they wouldn't give him the day off, and he went to UPMC and is doing cutting-edge work on joint surgeries and how to lessen the impact of that surgery.
Yeah.
But, what do? We got rid of him out of the Navy, so you lose one great surgeon.
Yeah, right. Well, people don't understand that. That's the two biggest reasons why I switched away from pre-med. Was I started to talk to people that, like, friends of family that were physicians, and they started breaking down like the business calculations to me. And I'm like, wait a minute, man, this doesn't make sense. And then I started going and talking to medical schools and learning how much it was going to cost. I'm like, this doubly doesn't make sense.
Right.
To the point where switching to English became the better option as a major, right? That's when I switched to English literature. That was the better option for me. I had better career prospects with a fucking English degree than I did
and without
long-term.
hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you look now, it's like people are going to a lot of non-traditional care. In fact, the Navy, which I never thought, the military in general, I never thought I'd see the day where they were going to cover chiropractic care. And I was reading an article the other day where they're going to start including that in their coverage.
Well, and that's how I got interested. I shouldn't say interested. Halfway through undergrad, I got burned out, and this is when I switched. And the last option I was trying to pursue was to go to the Navy, and because I wanted to go into medicine through the Navy, and they didn't have the program for me at that time. And so my only option was to go like into intelligence or something. I'm like, no thanks, I'll finish school.
Unified Allied Health wasn't an option,
or my recruiters didn't know about it, or didn't want me to. Who knows? All I know was it wasn't going to be an option for me.
Hey, the world needs infantrymen.
I don't know, man. But here's what's crazy. So this is the mid '90s, and somehow I convinced these assholes to let me smoke when I took my ASVAB in a federal building. I'm like, hey, does anybody mind if I smoke? And they're like, are you going to pass this? I'm like, I'm pretty sure I'll be all right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll tell you. Yeah. Pretty sure I can do the C-spot run of the.
Yeah.
Pretty sure I could be drunk, high, and still pass this stuff.
And criminally distracted by something going on in the room.
Yeah. Oh man. But yeah, that's the two biggest reasons. And to this day, I still think about it.
But
to this day, I still think about going back to medical school.
I think you get it. You start getting into your 40s and beyond. You're like, hey, what would have happened if I did something different, right? I mean, think about the ASVAB, right? And as an educator, and both of you have terminal degrees, that the military really, through the ASVAB and that standardized test, to start to slot people into a career and say, you have no hope of. I know this is what you want to do, but you're really going to struggle to do this, right? And I think college is a long way. People are like, hey, they have an idea, they have a vision. Oh, I want to go do this. Well, do you have any actual talent doing that? Like, do you have what's underneath the skin, under the hood, to go out and do that, right? And being that first level of innovator in workforce education, right? I think that's we're coming back to this, the Mike Rose and stuff, where people are like, hey, why do I have to spend X amount of dollars on a college degree without. Like what you did is you said, hey, you made a concerted effort at one point to go, if I do this, my job prospects are better with this degree than that degree. A lot of people don't think that, right? They just want to get, I'm going to get a degree and then I'm going to be set. Well, it's two things. One, when did Americans become too good to work with their hands anymore, right? There's a lot of that. But it's being thought.
For me, it was 1975.
Was that the day you were born?
Yeah. These hands still do not do manual labor.
Dan has the hands of a dancer.
He doesn't even masturbate himself.
I'm a hand model.
Yuck. Yeah.
Dan does so little physical labor, he doesn't even masturbate himself.
His hands off. He's like, what are you doing? Nothing. You think about, we obviously around this area, they build ships and they've been doing it forever, right? And then the apprentice school. And you can go get paid for, I think it's $40,000 your freshman year to be there, and up to $65,000 your senior year, and then you're going to go out and you're going to start working. It's so bad in welding right now. The guys that are qualified welders to work on nuclear stuff, obviously, a little bit more stringent than just slapping car parts together. Those guys probably used to make like $20 an hour. I might be off, but they're making now $80 an hour. But why? Because that workforce is aging rapidly, and what are we going to do, right? That's and the stigma that societally we put on people when you say, hey, you didn't go to college. Well, what are you doing? How are you? For years, I mean, now it's like Detroit. In the 50s and 60s, probably until the mid 70s, was highest per capita income of any big city in America. There were people every day doing manual labor, working it. They were putting their kids through college. They were buying cars, buying houses, saving. They could retire and everything like that, right? And that is that paradigm gone, right? Because I don't think
it pretty much is. So my stepfather, who just passed, was a master welder, and he actually was learned the skill while he was in the Navy. But I mean, the stuff that he had to go under, like he was explaining, to get the designation, they put your welding underneath like an X-ray so they can analyze everything.
Yeah.
And he could basically do anything when it came to welding.
Right.
It's
amazing. He doesn't have a mechanical engineering degree, but I guarantee you, he looks at the world the same way that guy does, and in a lot of cases is, what's the practical and what's the theoretical. Right?
Well, my brother's a welder. One of the trades he took on as he's gotten older is welding and fabrication.
Right.
And this is the thing that I struggle with too. Is so he did a 2-year technical school. And he's able to survive through his trade work, right? Because he's also a blacksmith, a farrier, right?
Yeah.
This is how this all interconnects. And yet, every single day, the world's getting more complex to a point where, man, at what point is it going to be too complex for him to navigate?
Right.
And a function of that is aging, right? I mean, he's only 3 years older than me, so it's not like we're old. But my parents, dude, years ago, they could use a basic computer. It's getting too abstract and too advanced. This is what I worry about with just a general population. We go back to minimum wage and working at McDonald's. When we were kids, it was fucking simple to work at McDonald's for your high school summer job or whatever, right? Really simple. Dude, it's way too complex now. And this is the one thing a lot of people don't talk about is slowly as a society and as a species, we are getting smarter, but we're still producing dumb people. No bullshit, right? And so you can look at raw IQ. And we're getting to a point where certain IQs aren't going to be able to function in the world anymore. And that scares the shit out of me.
Look at it this way. Dan and I daily, but you periodically worked in National Harbor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Prince George County, atrocious public school system there.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry to my PGPs, but it's an atrocious public school system. When you look, 10, 15 years ago when they said, hey, we're going to bring the Washington Nationals, we're going to bring a baseball team to Washington. They originally were going to build that stadium out by RFK, like out in DC on the eastern part of DC. And the vice mayor, who was from Southeast, said, wait a second, for years, you've gentrified every corner of DC except for Southeast. And Southeast, it was definitely not a place to go hang out. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's saying it politely.
You didn't get there. Well, you didn't end up in DC by accident, and in Southeast, and I don't mean that in a good way.
No.
Sure.
Not even, when medical workers, EMS workers had to have a ballistic vest on to go into there and go into the police escort, that tells you everything you need to know.
Mm-hmm.
If you look back to the 80s, when they were trying to clean up DC, they basically just did a big walk down and pushed all the people that were less than, right, into Southeast, and were shocked when what happened there.
Right.
So now, rightfully so, they said, hey, we want to fix Southeast. So they built the stadium, and if you go there, especially on 8th and I, there's restaurants now, there's a vibrant food scene, there's entertainment, there's everything else. My question was, and always has been, where did all those people go? You didn't give them a lotto check. You just basically pushed them across the river.
Yep.
Right? And now they're in PG County, right? And PG County's public school system is less than.
Mm-hmm.
They put a Starbucks across the street from the old office, and we would go in there, and I would listen to a lot of the young kids because it took forever to get through, because you were watching, if you paid attention, you were watching people struggle with the console, with the concept of memorizing the drinks, with all of the things that you have to be a good service employee, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's two ways to take this, right? You can laugh and be condescending and everything else that people that think they know more than other people tend to get. Or you can look at it and go, okay, that when we want to talk about making a minimum wage, a living wage, whatever we define that number to be, that's who it's for, right?
Yeah.
Because
in
a lot of cases, you're talking on a scale, right? There's what's the minimum acceptable standard in public education is different all over the country, right? And public schools do two things extremely well. They do gifted programs and special needs programs really well. If you're in the middle, then good luck. If you're at the high end of that 80 percentile that is considered the middle, then you can take some AP classes and you can and hopefully good luck. But if you're at the bottom of that, and you're doing, hey, we just pushed you through the system and now you're out and you have a high school diploma, that's where the problem lies. Because you're right, you've not been given the skills to do anything. The only thing you're good at is being a good app user, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Cooper is helping out a buddy of ours, and he has hardened cases he needs made to go around iPads, and they mount in vehicles, and they've had all matters of metal work done, and they're paying this whatever $450, and to have each one done. The guy wants to raise it $900. They can't get the anodizing right all the time, and it becomes a quality control issue. Well, Cooper found these guys that they have a 3D carbon fiber process, and to buy the machine $70,000, and all you got to do is be able to use the app.
Right.
Use it, and you don't need skilled labor. And they're like, well, why don't we just go get this?
Yeah.
Right? So the guy's like, hey, give me the dimensions and the way the drawings are fed in. You don't like change management is very easy. You just give them the next drawing, and it automatically adjusts. And it's quality control. It's everything else. And the guy made him one really quick. I was here, try this out, and the thing's bulletproof.
Yeah.
Right? And so when you talk about where we're going, it's not just working with your hands. It's the trades now are a combination of you have to have some minimum technical language, right? And you don't have to be a coder and like that, but you have to be able to absorb that and do that. We have people that are struggling using point of sale systems that by their very design were designed to make things go more quickly so you could push more customers through the day.
That's right. That's right.
That's the appalling part.
It is, man. And I only see the divide between these segments of the population exponentially getting wider quickly, right. Very quickly.
But it's not like people want to go. It's it's the wealth gap, right?
No,
it's not a wealth gap. The people look at the end result, right? You look at the
exactly.
You don't like everybody wants to eat the sausage. Nobody wants to see the pig.
That's right. The wealth is just a symptom. It's an expression of a core problem.
But what do we demand from people, right? That's like, what do you demand from yourself, right? What are we teaching people to be self-reliant? Apparently not, right? In evidentiary, we're not, right? So what are we doing? And even in tech, we do this all the time. I speak in front of groups all the time. People are like, millennials, this millennial. Like, no, look, if you can't work with young people, don't go to work, right? Because they're talented. They're hungry. Raw dollars of income aren't the driving factor to them. How do we keep them with passion and purpose to execute on something good? And these are smart people, right?
And I think every generation said that about the next generation coming up. This just now happens to be millennials.
It's baffling to me, especially because I think my generation was the last group of people that, if you weren't blind rule followers, you did what adults told you to do, right? But when I was a kid, you could get on the T, your public transportation, go downtown, go to the baseball game, and there's always some adult to look after you. We don't hold that in the same regard as we did 30, 35, 40 years ago, right? But now you're saying, hey, people are question askers more than ever, right? And not just to you, right? If an adult told me something when I was 15, I kind of had to go, okay, great, because where was I going to go find out whether they're right or wrong? Like, you can be at a meeting, like, I mean, how many times have you been in a meeting? And Dan, I've watched you and I do it in the same meeting where somebody comes out and something comes out of their pie hole, and we immediately pick up our phones because I know we're both on Google going, I don't think that's true.
That's not. Yeah, I was like, that doesn't sound right. It's a logic aspect, and I don't really quite understand why we don't, as a society, do this. So, when I look at my workforce, where am I spending my training dollars? I'm trying to get my junior and mid-level people the most amount of training I possibly can, because that's the biggest gain I'm going to get in my workforce. Right. If the person's already at the 90th percentile, I'm going to get a 10% gain from one person. If I go down to the 30th percentile and I can get them all to 60, I just gain 30% more efficiency in my workforce. But we don't do that as a society. We're not putting our money to give people the tools necessary to succeed as a society. It's just easier to go, hey, you're in Baltimore City, so you're not going to get the same amount of education dollars as Montgomery County.
There's a deeper problem, though, is there's less of society that's capable of bridging those gaps. That's the problem. It's the brain drain problem. We're talking about
capable, or along the road, they're not shown that's an opportunity, right?
Well, the
Yes.
educators,
Yes.
the educators also aren't
Right.
willing to go to.
You're gerrymandering in a way that's not necessarily a net positive to society. The way to do this. Look at, I'm a big believer in Peirce's law. Peirce's law says the square root of the number of people you have working on any given problem produce 50% of the positive outcome. Right.
Yep.
100-person workforce, 10 people are doing 50% of the work.
Yeah.
If I extrapolate that out and I lose one of those good people, I'm effectively losing 5 persons worth of value, right?
Yeah.
If I lose one of the non-performers or one of the people that are in the bottom quartile of that, I'm losing 0.6 people, right? So where do we focus our time and attention? And that's what drives a deeper chasm in a bad outcome. Because trust me, if I'm running a sales organization, hey, go find my 10 top performers and I'm going to load all my effort into those guys and hope that the other people leave. Because if I spend all my time trying to get the bottom 10% to be even remotely productive, I'm going to have to put rules and engagement. I mean, especially like sales is easy for me because most of it gets trapped up in some CRM system.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And now I've got to do more work. I got to do more input. I've got to show more this, more that. And I spend more time doing the arts and crafts than I do doing my job of going out and selling and building relationships and everything else. Right. And that's true across everything. It's just sales is really easy it's a very easy argument to see. Right. So why am I going to focus on those people? Right. Is the problem at this point, and I'll use the sales model. So I got 10 people that are my top, and then I got those 10 bottom people. Is it that those 10 people at the top are more well-trained? In some case, I think maybe at the beginning, yes. And when we talk about Jared wanting to get out of school next year and go, and Dan and I are saying, hey, we're going to help. We're going to focus him into a company that's got a great training pipeline early on because it's process and discipline that's going to make him successful 10 years down the road as a sales leader if that's what he wants to do. Right? You can say that about anything, but sales, again, I think it's really highlighted as to what works and what doesn't. So do we have the bottom 10 on process, right? What we tend to do is we quantify effort, right? We're very good at quantifying effort. How do I quantify judgment? Right? That's the key, right? In anything, what's important, right? There's 10 tasks in a day. Which one's important? What Dan is talking about is giving people the skill set that they can quantify judgment, right? Sure. And in sales, quantifying judgment is being able to forecast correctly, knowing which deal is going to close, which deal is not going to close, and those things, and why, right? Well, some of it goes back to, am I asking good questions? What's the basis of all training is giving people the wherewithal to be able to ask smart questions.
Yeah, I agree. Sure.
Right. I mean, that's education, right? I don't know what I don't know. I go from unconscious incompetence to being unconsciously competent, right? Not having to think about being competent is the apogee of what we're all looking for personally and from employees. Right, along that glide slope down to unconscious incompetence, and that's the dangerous one, right? I don't know anything.
Yeah, you're right.
About people that don't get it. Most people that don't get it don't know they don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and that's danger.
Yeah,
right? And when somebody that is considered to be a high functioning employee or even a good part of the tribe, right, whatever your tribe is, can walk into a Starbucks and make fun of somebody that's standing behind there that's obviously struggling with the basics. That's a bigger problem in your organization than them not knowing the zeros and ones or the right lane of the road to be in while they're traveling down their work journey. Because you're going to put that person in front of people, whether it's internal or external, and their native mechanism for how to deal with people that are struggling is to goof on them. Right? That's bad.
Yeah, right. As opposed to trying to find a way to raise them up,
right?
Yeah,
and have some sort of empathy, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a bigger problem, right? And this concept, and I think it's social media. And I don't think social media fuels a lot of this us and them mentality, to the point where, again, we come back to this a lot. I find that there's just like where am I allowed to disagree with you, right? And this week, like, people were trashing Ellen DeGeneres because she sat at a sporting event next to George W. Bush.
Yeah, I didn't understand that, and I didn't read a lot about it, but I'm like,
it's people that are tolerant, right?
Yeah,
I'm tolerant of my opinion, and if you disagree from my opinion, then you're wrong. And now I'm allowed to chastise you, yell at you, throw things at you, and exhibit all sorts of abhorrent behavior because you don't blindly agree with me. And I thought she had a great response. She said, "Hey, I stand up in front of you." She has a huge audience, right? She has a huge following, and she says, "Hey, let's just be nice to each other." Now, people are saying she's a hypocrite because she said she'd never have President Trump on her show because she disagrees with his views. If she said, "I don't want to give his politics a platform," that's one thing, right? But she's saying, "I don't think." But at the end of it, she said the right thing. Like, all of us hang out with people that we don't agree with everything they do, right, or everything they believe in.
Yeah, sure.
For bad people, it just means you've chosen to live your life a different way than I have, right? But you look at some of these. You look now, like what's going on in China with the NBA.
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah.
Here we are. We're trying to, a certain segment when they say, "Oh, they're tolerant," but you're not allowed to disagree with them. That's actually a dictator that's saying you're not allowed to disagree with them.
Yeah.
Daryl Morey,
Yeah.
he's the guy that made a statement about Hong Kong on Twitter. He's the general manager of the Houston Rockets. He's significant in basketball for one big reason. He is the first person that really took analytics and behavioral analysis seriously in how they grab talent.
Right.
And he's on record as saying he's made bad draft choices when he's tried to use his personal or other people's intuition in the organization and not gone with what he knew to be true from statistical analysis. Right? We call it this in basketball. They call it I think it's the Sam Bowie. Sam Bowie in 1984 got drafted by, I think, Portland ahead of Michael Jordan. Right? And they're doing it now in football. For Mitch Trubisky got drafted number 2 ahead of 2 other quarterbacks that are really good in Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson, right? And those 2 are playing together or against each other this week. And Trubisky looked like crap on Monday Night Football, right? And it said, "Are you a first-round draft pick?" Like, and I'm talking about in life. Are you a first-round draft pick?
Right.
It only takes one person to say yes.
Yeah.
Right? And how are you doing your job, right? Tim Tebow, by all accounts, was one of the most amazing college quarterbacks and a really good human being. Pro games not his because he had a hugely elongated throwing style. But what did he do? He won a playoff game. He didn't win a playoff game because he was a great quarterback. He won a playoff game because he was a good leader.
Yeah, right.
He put people in a position. He would take it. He would do the things necessary to win. What are we going to do when we say, "Hey, who's going to be a first round player," and how do we argue that, right? My thing is always to say, "Hey, with the empathy and compassion you can have, but still have to run a business, how do we navigate that and get quality people there?" Right? It's getting a position where you're in a position to lead, right? And both of you heard me say this before. What other people think is none of your business, right? And people get caught up in their feels about this. Now, how you engage with other human beings and what you think they should or shouldn't do for you or done it, that's not what I'm talking about. Like, you get out and you're basically got to navigate through life. When people, like, me personally, and we did this at Silent Circle, and we basically let a lot of the workforce go and then brought in younger, smart people that were hungry, right? Like Joe. Like, Joe's one of my favorite people. He was a guy who could walk in and just go, "Hey, we're doing this. What do you think?" Right? "Here's the outcome I want. Tell me what you would do." And young, smart kid, very aggressive in a good way, not in an adverse way, but wanted to be the next thing and was willing to work hard to get there. When we were doing something, I asked him, and when it came out and we showed it, he's like, "Hey, if you're not going to take my advice, why do you ask?" And I go, "What do you mean?" I go, "This is flatly all of this right here in the middle. This is you. I didn't use your solution in totality because this is your worldview. This is mine because of where we're at in the hierarchy. You're working there. You're going to be the CEO of a company one day. You're smart. You're aggressive. And you're all the things we want," because he was he would help to educate other people in the workforce. All those things that you're looking for. You just can't. Some days you can't run to get there. I want all those guys and girls.
Yeah, right.
I want all those people that are looking in the corners and then what are you doing to be great today? And I think that's the other problem is some people they don't know what they're doing to achieve their own personal greatness.
Yeah, sure.
And some of that personal greatness is what am I doing to take care of me, right? And how do I translate me being taken care of emotionally, spiritually, intellectually, while I'm trying to help other people and grow and do all the other things I want to do in my life?
I'm just focused on the first part of that.
We know. We absolutely know. And this is
got it.
In case it wasn't clear.
This goes back to that thing we talked where you were saying before. There's Nostradamus and then there's Dan.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
We know Dan. Dan wants the world on large stages to know Nostradamus. Right? And be that. And that's okay. That's cool, right?
Yeah, sure, man.
But sure. I ran into a buddy of mine. I put him through training and he's getting ready to retire from the Navy. And when I was putting him through training, I can tell you how it doesn't. He flipped a Hummer in training, which I thought was impossible. And but luckily it wasn't open, it was a closed one. So he rattled around in this ambulance body, got a little scraped up. And one of the things I always used to tell students, and he reminded me of it because he said it. He goes, I said it to a guy the other day. This goes back into 2001. And he was still talking about it today. You have two mirrors in life. You have one mirror is how cool you think you are, and the other mirror is how cool you really are. And the further apart those mirrors get, the more chance you have to hurt yourself. Physically, emotionally, socially, and everything else. And managing your internal self is that, again, when we start talking about who's going to rise to the top and everybody, it's, hey, how can I manage my internal self? Like, what's the battle with my soul? Right?
Yeah.
And I think, Dan, one of the ways you manage your internal self is that Nostradamus mirror is how cool I think I am, and the Dan mirror is how cool I really am. And I think as you've gotten older, you've basically put those things on top of each other so they're one mirror, and that's how you're advancing and moving through the world and growing, right? And I think that's very positive. How many people don't ever quite get there? Right?
I'd say a lot. And it's the interesting part with a lot of these things. Because I tend to use a lot more humor with my younger folks in order to kind of get them easier to move along. So I've got my junior analyst, and I'm telling her about Skippy, and some of you know Skippy is Greg and where he's at in life. And she's like, when do I get a nickname? And I'm like, well, you've got to earn it.
Yeah.
And so she said, yeah, well, I've been here I says, well, right now, I would kind of say, so I gave her the story of Wally Pipp. And she's like, who's Wally Pipp? And I said, it's the person that Lou Gehrig used to call Sniffles. He took off work one day. And then eventually he just said, after he playing however many 2,000 plus games later at first base with the New York Yankees, when every time Wally Pipp, he's like, well, I'm ready to go. He's like, why don't you just sit this one out, Sniffles? And I said, you called out sick yesterday because you had a little bit of a headache. So maybe it's Sniffles. If you want one right now, she's like, I think I'll wait for a different nickname. I was like, good idea.
Like in naval aviation, all the pilots do call signs. Yeah. They can't give themselves their own call sign. You earn that. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. Right? Same way in the SEAL community. For years, there was a guy we used to call him Big Daddy. And somebody found out one day he gave himself that nickname. He was Big Dummy after that. For the rest of his life, he was big. And he literally, that's where he went, right?
Sure.
And I think that, and this is politically incorrect, but it's the way I learned it growing up, and the story doesn't flow saying another way. What's your Indian name?
Yeah, right.
Guy that shows up on time, or guy that shows up early and busts his ass that's a really good Indian name, right?
Right.
Guy that can't work with the rest of the tribe is a really bad Indian name.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, be conscious. Like, what do you want that to be? Like, that's people's view of you, right? And so, while what other people think of you shouldn't drive your behavior, if you have to go, what do I want? What's the perception that I want people to be out there, right? And I want my perception, and this is not something I could have said 20, 30 years ago. I want my perception to be as close to my reality of who I am and where I'm at in life as possible, right?
Yeah, right.
When I get out and I talk to groups of people, and especially with younger folks and they're young professionals, that's one of the big points I try to drive home is, it's the concept of is your real life as good as your social media life,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that perception, right? I went out to eat the other night and I saw a friend of mine who owns a mortgage company, and his sister works there, and I'm good friends with his sister. And I was joking with him, and I said, "Hey, is she as I said, the thing is, it looks like she's like, she's relaxed and not as hateful as she was before, right?" And I don't mean that bad. She's just a very aggressive person, right? He goes,
Yeah.
"I don't know. It's just as bad as ever." Right. But all I see lately, because we don't see each other in person that much anymore, is I see what her social media life is. Right. And I'm not saying she's doing anything wrong. It's just,
No. Yeah.
It's like, hey, if I have to have a boil lance, I'm probably not putting that up on Instagram.
Yeah. Right.
Right. Or whatever it is. Right. You're gonna, and some of it is a self-control mechanism. The world doesn't need to know everything, but there are people that are chronic overshares. Right. And so how do I get my life mirrors to balance out with each other and basically project as close to my true self to the world as I can?
I think you have two options with that. One, become a vampire so you don't ever see any of your reflections, or two, break all mirrors in the house.
Well, I'll leave you with this.
I'm a problem solver.
Write that down. Write that down. Thinker. Then hashtag thinker.
I'll leave you with this. I got to get running in a minute. You orient yourself on an aim or a goal.
Right.
And that's what you're projecting into the world. And the more you follow those steps or milestones or path, whatever you want to call it, the more tightly coupled that projection of the two mirrors will be.
And I think as you get older, well, older is not the right word. I think as you become more self-aware.
Yeah.
And people will say, hey, if you could change one thing about yourself when when you're younger self, is to become what I believe to be the most self-aware I could be as young as I could be. Right. Whether that was at 10 years old or 12 years old, whatever, because I think with younger folks, myself included along the way, that's the limiting factor in how far you can project yourself. Right.
Yeah, sure.
When I say that somebody's an old soul, a lot of times when I think about it afterwards, and you take a younger person, 20s, in mid to late 20s, early 30s, you say, oh, that person's an old soul. Really what you're saying, in my estimation, is that person's really self-aware.
Yeah, sure.
Self-aware, they can then become part of the solution in life a lot quicker than being needed. And I still F it up. Right. Everybody,
yeah.
Right. It's a road. It's like you're on a path. Right. But I think the quicker, like, you can go, how quickly do I recover from mistakes? Right. I want to, resilience is better than recovery, I think. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And if you buy into the Taleb model, then anti-fragile is better than resilient. Right. Where I don't care what the wind's doing to me. Right, because this, like he says, the same wind that fuels a fire blows out a candle.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? So what's how do you?
So my thought on this and the real aspect is everything I do today is to put me in a position to where I want to be as a person 10 years from now.
Yeah, right.
Everything, and that's everything that drives me. People say, well, why are you going and getting an MBA? Because I know where I want to be in 10 years. I don't question where I want to be in 10 years. And I think that the people that ask those questions, and they're actually doing it in a way that they feel like they are in a superior position, it's because they actually don't know where they're going to be in 10 years.
Right.
And they're looking for some type of insight into themselves.
But I understand that it helps you, that part of where you want to be in, being directionally correct. Right. Mm-hmm. Being directionally correct, because you're going to go left or right a little bit and things can change, but you're shooting a trajectory that you generally know is correct. I think that goes into large measure a big piece of you being a good developer of people and talent, right? Because you understand those people are going to be around for a while. And I was speaking at an engagement of people that are getting ready to get out of the military, and it's one of the foundations that they have. And the guy, people, they do all interview questions, like what questions to ask and answer at interviews. And I said, when you talk to I said, because most of you aren't going to go out as junior people, you're not going to go out as really senior people, but you're going to have, if for no other reason than just the circus sideshow thing, somebody's going to want to talk to a former SEAL, right? So you're probably going to meet people that are far more up the chain of command because, look, we might hire this guy as a former SEAL. And like I always tell them, it'll get you that kind of sideshow freak thing. It's not going to get you the job and it's not going to keep you there, but you will get an interview. It'll be a wedge in the door. And one of the guys is like, what's the one question I can ask? If I get the opportunity to meet the CEO or meet somebody who's the head of my vertical, what can I ask them? I said, ask them how many people that currently work for them at where they're at have worked for them previously. And if the answer is 0, don't go work there.
Right.
Don't go work for that guy. Because that's, in my mind, as big a telling tale of who that person is and why they are there than anything. Because what it says is, hey, I value that person's opinion enough, that wherever they're going, I believe in them as a leader, I believe in them as a person, and more importantly, I believe in them in their ability to take care of me, right? And and those people are gonna bust their behind, even if it's not always in the best way, right? Because we both know, or all know, some folks, they follow people around. They follow them around. Why? Because they're chasing money. Mm-hmm. Right. And that's,
they're not chasing, they're not doing it they're doing it for the money, not for the, to me,
right.
the
You're not,
right
you know that, hey, if I go there, this guy's going to make me a lot of money and I'll tolerate all the adverse behavior. Right. But if you're truly looking at getting there, and I'll ask that question, hey, how many people followed you around? Right. And why? Right. Because, and I want to talk to one of those guys. Like, what's it like working for this guy?
Yeah, right.
When you're a junior guy, you don't have that sort of an option, but you roll in, you're going to go be the COO of a company, number 2, number 3 guy. You're in the executive team. Let me go talk to some of these people. Let me find out about you, right? And let's go do it at lunch where we're not sitting inside the building where people, even not in a creepy way, but people, their defense mechanisms are different whether they're in the building or out of the building, right?
Yeah, sure.
That's usually important. But I think that, Dan, as much as anything, is being directionally correct in your life, affords you the opportunity to go out and grow and mentor young people, right? And make the next generation better. It's one of the reasons Greg's going to kill it throughout his life, is because he got off on the right foot, right?
Yeah. I look at my success based on the people who have worked for me, right, and where they are.
I think we all do, right? But here's the other thing too. I think it's one of the reasons that, and I used to have a different opinion of this about you, Dan. It's one of the reasons that, like, you get effing angry. Like when people that you've spent time and energy mentoring want to leave and they don't ask you, right? At first I thought it was like, oh, he just wants to try to keep. No, you continue to want to mentor them, and you understand that at some point they're going to have to grow up and go fly on their own. If they want to hang out with you and stay with you, that's fine. But you didn't do that, right? You got mentored by people and you went along your way and you maintained friendships with those people. That's what makes you mad, is that they don't, at some point they're like, hey, I've had enough of Dan's counsel. I'm good. I'm on my way. And it goes counter to the model. And I want to create the same model that you do. Hey, I want you to go out and about. Eventually you'll come back, right? I mean, Cooper's helping me out now in this new project, right? He went off and worked for Dark Matter, did a bunch of other things, right? And got a lot of great skills along the way. Mm-hmm. But we still want to work together when things. Same with Stoney, same with you guys and everything else, right? That right there is, I think, and that's a good reason to get angry with somebody, right? Or to get uppity, as it were. It's like, hey, I'm not telling you not to go do it. I've spent a lot of time and effort keeping you from stepping on landmines and stubbing your toe. I want to try to help push you over there somewhere else, because I think you need to hear from a different voice, right? That's why people move around and have different layers. You need to hear from somebody else, right? But let's go make it somebody that I know has the same empathy and caring about people to grow them, and then just you going to take another job because you think you want more money or that looks like something cool to do.
Sage advice, my friends.
All right, my friends.
And I have a birthday party to get
It-
ready for.
Adult birthday party or kid's birthday party?
My daughter's fifth.
What are we doing tonight?
Nice.
We're going to a park and playing balloon volleyball and pin the tail on whatever kids like to pin the tail on. And
Pin the tail on Dr. Pittman.
probably, well, and she's really into Wonder Woman right now. So she wants to be Wonder Woman, and because of that, I have to be the Batman.
So is Dan. Dan wants to be Wonder Woman when he grows up.
Why not?
Well, I mean,
Dan, did you see the new Joker movie yet?
Not yet.
I want to see it. I've largely stayed away from those types of movies, but reading more about it, it's a movie about mental illness, not Batman.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet, but
now
that's
you
my
made me want to-
Hey, the funny part about with the Joker is that in the TV show Gotham, the Joker character says it only takes one bad day and you become me.
True. I don't
That is
like.
true.
Yeah.
This is true.
Think about when you go to your dark place, like wherever that is for you. Like everybody's got where they're really bad in life, right? And whether it's socially, internally, whatever. How do you get there?
Yeah.
What's the trigger?
One bad day.
And
Yep.
maybe not even a whole day. Maybe one bad event.
Just enough to switch off that empathy switch.
Yeah.
And if that gets shut off permanently,
I've got a pretty strong resistance on the empathy switch, but when you get me to the point where I switch it off, everybody needs to go take one giant Mother May I step back, because I'm like, And usually what it is I'm watching other people not have empathy towards people, and I get so effing mad that I just like, okay, you don't deserve it anymore. I want to flip it off, go get you right, and then come back and try to be a nice guy. But that's not how life works.
Why do you think I keep a list? So when my switch goes off, I already have my initial targets.
God, Dan, I love you. I really do.
it never ends, and I love it.
Exactly. All right,
All right,
All right,
chaps.
my friends.
Have a good one. I'll talk to you soon. We'll do this again next week.
Yes,
Take
sir.
care. Later.
Cheers, everybody.